pleasure was my way forward. Pleasure was the thing that started my deconstruction. So once I was divorced, I had no money. So I was living in this basement apartment, and it was there in this tiny little basement apartment on the floor that I just began reading anything I could on my own body, because I thought, okay, so I'm not a virgin, so I guess I must be a whore. And is that what I have to look forward to? And something in me was just whispering, no, there's got to be something more. And so I just started to devour books on female sexuality. Like let's start there. I have a vulva. I should know about it. And so from this space, all of a sudden I went, I think I've been lied to.
Enter the clitoris.
Like
walks onto the stage.
Right? Like you could see a little clitoris. Once the clitoris had arrived and I had been lied to about one thing, it was the moment it all kind of started to crumble, where I went, wait a second, maybe this fear of my sexuality and sensuality was because of some power inside of me. And if there's a power inside of me, what exactly is that? And what exactly might they be hiding?
Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place. Hey, Ken, we have a fantastic guest today.
So exciting.
It is. Well, this one's exciting because I knew that the second I thought to ask Lauren to join us, I was like, well, we could just pick up the phone right now and start talking, and whatever we record would be epic and wonderful. So I feel very comfortable about
just glad
this
to be here.
Just hanging along for the ride. I'm here for it. So let me introduce everybody, because Lauren is a colleague of mine and also a dear friend, and I feel very, very lucky to get to have her here talking with us. Lauren Elise Rogers is a certified holistic sexuality educator and an embodied intimacy and relationship coach. And Lauren's embodied approach to education is rooted in her own pain to purpose journey. She has been through it, y'all. And what we're going to talk about today is firsthand experience, as well as that beautiful, having found the gold in the muck of the shadows. Lauren brings an empathetic, non-judgmental lens to everything from long-term partnerships and life transitions to consensual non-monogamy and LGBTQIA issues. I love Lauren's approach because she's always creating shame-free spaces. She's offering practical tools to people. Y'all know how much I love a good tool. And Lauren's all about empowering people into their own pleasure and their own confidence and their own connection. And we're going to talk today about how purity culture shapes one's sense of self and sexuality, and how stepping out of those constraints can open up the door to discover whatever's right for you, and how that is both a subjective and personal thing, and also a great big picture, how we liberate each other thing. So, Lauren, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here. I'm
so excited. Ken, I always ask the same question up front. I'm guessing you could guess what I was going to ask her first.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to define terms.
What is purity culture? What does it mean? Yeah, let's talk about what we're going to talk about.
Let's define it. And first and foremost, it's funny because when you talk to any purity culture survivor, and I say this in quotation marks, everyone has a little bit different of a lived experience. So I want anyone listening to know that if your lived experience differs, you still get that badge. My friend, you are still a survivor. So if something doesn't feel resonant, it could have been even more expansive. But how I define it is growing up inside of a purity culture meant that your worth and your value was attached to your sexual purity or lack thereof. And when I say purity, it could be that you were encouraged, admonished to remain abstinent until marriage, and that marriage was to look like only between a man and a woman, nothing else. and that you were to be with that one man and that woman for the rest of your days. Now, sometimes inside of purity culture, like in my sense, we did a courtship model. There was no dating allowed. You dated or courted with the intent to model, with the intent to marry, because you did not want to, in quotation marks again, practice divorce. You
Oh.
wanted to at all times.
So no breaking up allowed.
None. And the world that I existed in was under such books such as I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And so we were encouraged never to kiss. Holding hands was frowned upon. Anything where you might be giving your heart away, which leads me to the other tenet, which was your body, your heart, your soul, all belonged to another. Your future spouse, usually in the case if you were in a male body, and if you were in a female body, your body belonged to, yes, your future spouse, but also your father.
Well, that sounds
Yes.
problematic.
So many of us went to purity ring balls, including myself, around the ages of 14 to 16, and we danced with our dads, and then we were presented a ring that most of the time resembled an engagement ring. And we were told that we were in essence married to our fathers until our wedding days, when our father would take off our engagement ring to him, and we would then marry our husbands. This swung out of the AIDS epidemic. So it is a really interesting swing of the pendulum. There were a lot of frightened people. We saw all of a sudden abstinence until marriage education start filtering into our school systems. And then the church,
which all of us then experienced, even if we weren't being raised. I wasn't being raised in purity culture, but I was impacted by that pendulum swing for sure.
Exactly, which is why I think it's such an important topic, no matter if you existed inside of a religious space or not, because these tenets infiltrated into public schools around America. So many of them still exist, friends. It's wild. So yes, abstinence until marriage education became even more important inside of these religious spaces. And sexual purity, physical purity, emotional purity, mental purity. There was a lot of us who got all of this education about lust, about our thoughts, about holding every thought captive, about, yes, fantasy. Any of these things were all cheating on your future spouse.
So, geez, I wonder why I have to deal with so much retroactive jealousy struggle. Since clearly you were out there just making material. Okay, I'm going to stop.
So you, the two of you are, in a slightly different time frame than I was, because when I went to school, this wasn't even really, we barely had sex education in school. Nobody was talking about how you should date, or at least, nowhere in my community. It just was not a conversation. And what I hear is then, as you said, people got afraid and started to bring in all sorts of
because Ken graduated high school in '84,
right?
So
so that's all like, good luck, everybody.
Right.
Okay, there's your sex education. And
so it's not like it was a bang up job before.
No.
We managed to make it worse anyway.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned that you can get the badge no matter what kind of experience you have, and you just described a very what sounds to me like a pretty obvious and like well bounded and defined culture of purity. But what are some of the like subtle forms that this can show up as that people might not immediately recognize?
Such a fantastic question. The thing that immediately rose up was traditional gender roles. I have so many clients that I work with now who didn't feel the chokehold of purity culture, and yet feel very strongly that they got this education of what was a quote unquote man's job and what was quote unquote a female's job. This idea of provision of pleasure for the other fell on the shoulders of future spouse. So all of this teaching, such as, well, you've got to do this for the wife and she's got to do this for you, really sat in this idea of headship that was also a bunch of purity culture stuff, this fundamentalist hierarchy of power. There's God, there's the man, there's the wife, there's the kids. And
the umbrella
the
thing.
umbrella
With
thing.
the umbrella. I've seen the umbrellas.
We talk about the umbrella
not
so
pretty.
much. It's so yucky. So gender roles came to mind immediately, Ken. What a great question. And then also, oh my gosh, masturbation. If anyone got those types of messages surrounding, if you masturbate, you're going to grow hair on your hands. If you masturbate, you're basically cheating on your future spouse with the devil, was something a lot of my clients were told. So this idea of self-pleasure, of the body not belonging to self, the body belonging to other, which just did a lot of mind fuckery in so many human beings because they didn't know their own body belonged to them, which then was confusing because then if my body doesn't belong to me, well, then maybe your body doesn't belong to you. And so they get into these relationships. And what we're seeing now is a lot of coercive sexual situations inside of committed partnerships. Well, you said you'd marry me, right? So that means you're giving me sex. So this idea of agency just poof.
Yeah.
That's really, I think of like one of the things I think of when I think of purity, my weird logical brain goes to like Artemisian purity, like the Artemisian virginity of I am complete unto myself. And this is like 180 degrees away from that.
Yeah.
This is purity by not even being unto myself. It's
yes, thank you.
Stunning.
Thank you for reminding us all of the origin of that word, which is, yes, exactly what Ken said. And I can't wait for my audience to hear this because, yes, I say that all the time. Like, how we butchered it. Go ahead.
We butchered it. We butchered it. I'm really struck by there's a book by Donna Haraway called The Purity Problem. And it's about a completely different whole avenue. It's about the purity problems of science and philosophy. But I remember the first time I came across this book, I picked it up because I was so intrigued by this idea that Ken had mentioned to me years ago about this. There's this idea that we're supposed to be somehow special or sacred, and it kept coming back to this word pure, that there's some perfected way to be. And both of us recognized the way it had seeped into us, even though we weren't. We were both raised in Christian households, but both of us had a pretty progressive upbringing without even really knowing it. But the purity problem still soaked in. There was still a major amount of masturbatory shame. For me, there was like the gender roles piece. Like there were things that were precognitive commitments in me about what was okay and what was not okay for me to pursue that nobody had to teach me. It was part of the zeitgeist. It was just out there. Like when I think about the purity problem, I think so much bigger even than religion into it is just a part of the water we're swimming in, which makes me want to just we're not going to spend the whole episode here, but can we talk about the fact that right now we're seeing a resurgence of this purity problem repackaged, fresh and new with Lauren, are you in your feminine?
Right.
Are you in your feminine? And I can't. For me, who grew up in the 80s, I'm like, wait, we got the fuck out of there, didn't we?
Right.
No.
I mean, right. There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, we have so many phrases for this type of thing, and it engages like a gag reflex in me. And yet I feel that this whole new generation is being exposed to all of this verbiage for the first time. And it's so interesting that we bring up what's happening right now, because highly recommend, it's on YouTube, this documentary called Give Me Sex, Jesus, to your audience. And it traces back to the deepest roots of this idea of purity, and with the origins of this country, when we were starting to see more immigrants in our country, we started to have mothers not want their white sons to have sexual experiences with women of a different race. So the very first verbiage we started to see of purity was racist. And if we can't look at that, then I feel like we're just kind of skipping it. We're like, oh, it's a religious problem. It's not.
It's not. It's everywhere.
Such a deeper problem. And here we're seeing it again. right? We are seeing it again in this research. It's like been repackaged, this trad wife movement. There was just some big symposium, New York Times did an article on it.
And even a
Right.
lot of the tantra spaces I've been
Yes.
going to, and I'm like, wait,
What is happening?
what happened? Because that was not true when I was first dipping into them 15, 20 years ago. I wasn't seeing the same, like it wasn't this. There were, of course, we were talking about yab yum. Of course we were, but it wasn't this kind of highly structured. It feels so familiar from what my grandmother described to me.
Oh,
And I
yes.
thought, like, surely we're not. And now I'm listening to my own daughters and what they're being exposed to, especially, but my sons too. And I think, yup, they have been, it's like you said, nothing new under the sun. It's a repackaged version, but it is still purity culture. It is still the reinforcement of this same thing.
Yes.
So can we talk about what a disaster it's been? Because you experienced a particular way.
Yes.
This manifested. So I want to get to your professional experience in it too, but first, can you share us just
a snippet
just
of how that didn't go so
let
great?
the audience in, because it didn't so you got the ring from your dad.
I did.
And then you were courted.
Mm-hmm.
How'd it go? You happily married in your
right?
in
Am I
your
still right? Oh, it's a fun story. I am the example of why the current teachings that we're seeing are so scary. Because I truly thought I was doing it well. And I liked it. And I had my nose up in the air that what I was doing was truly the best way to do things. I was not one of those on the inside going, ugh, this doesn't make any sense. I truly had subscribed. I was signed, sealed, delivered. I taught Bible studies with my friends called Ladies in Waiting. I mean, it was sick. It was gross.
Oh.
So yeah, around.
I want to go back and hug.
I do too.
18-year-old
Lauren.
Lauren.
She could. And oh my goodness, I always have my clients now work through this worksheet with me about sexual values. And at any point in your life, were you influencing or have you influenced, are you the sexual values of another? And they'll tell me funny stories, yada, yada. And then I always confess that one. That was, I was there.
You bought in 100%.
I just want folks to know that, because I think it's actually an awesome story to think about what I came from. So I don't say this to despair us. I say this to say, if I can do this, anybody can do this. So I had courted this one man in high school. We did break up. It was devastating because I thought that I was supposed to be with this man. But then I was introduced to a guy who was 7 years older than I. So at 18, I was introduced to him, and he had graduated college. He was living in our town, and I fell head over heels. Interestingly, he was very artistic and very soft-spoken, and I had always been taught that women were to be meek. And so in my mind, I was like, this is great. This is a great opportunity for me to become smaller, because this man is soft and tender. And so this will give me an opportunity to become soft and tender. So we started dating. It was a big deal. We were moving towards marriage. By 21, we were engaged, 21 for me, older for him. Then my mother gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And we were supposed to get married in November, and we were on our way to our very first premarital counseling session. And friends, when I say that this was a moment that could have changed everything, I still wonder what would have happened if we had made it to that premarital counseling session, but we didn't. We got a call from my mother's cancer oncologist person, and we came back to the house. She was given a couple weeks to live. Her dying wish was, can I see you get married? We bump our wedding up. We get married in 10 days.
Oh my goodness.
The one piece of sex ed I was given was, take care of your husband's needs and everything will be fine.
Oh.
The part of that is so funny, my friends, is that 10 years later, I divorced this man for many reasons, and he is now happily gay. So I spent a decade trying to take care of my husband's needs, and that was never going to happen. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
It was
I'm imagining you with the strap right now, Lauren. And I mean, maybe. Like, I think you've got game. I can do it. But I don't. But you didn't have the. So nobody. But then your gift, like your gift to him, would have needed to include a whole lot of education.
A whole lot of education.
You were going to need to really Bring it.
And I've gone on to research this in school, but he had suppressed his own orientation so deeply as well. So he did not know. Folks will often ask, were there affairs? Was there sneaky stuff behind? No, he didn't know.
Didn't even know.
He didn't know until years outside of our marriage, which made the divorce process horrifying.
Right.
Because I was labeled a whore and a harlot and one who had gone rogue, and that it was me who was sinning by leaving this marriage. Never mind the alcoholism, never mind the parasomnias, never mind the emotional abuse and the financial control. I was called so many things because there was no adultery and there was no physical abuse. So yeah, lost it all. Left the husband.
The suppression of his orientation.
Yes.
Both of your lack of sexual education. Your imagined future was supposed to be that if you just did this one thing and met his needs, which he didn't even know what they were, let alone, and you wouldn't. And on top of this, I'm thinking of that first season of Bridgerton when Daphne's like, Mom, could you at least have told me that there were parts that needed to be inserted into other parts? Could there have been just something? Just the basics? Could we have something? And then layered into all of this, I'm imagining that there was an immense pressure to also procreate and to raise a family in a certain way and to also limit your power in many other ways.
Yes.
Yeah, all along the way. First of all, I'm struck and impressed by your ability to, from within all of that, start getting a divorce. Just like the idea that even starting it, like that must have been such an internal uphill battle, and I'm just amazed that you were able to do that.
Thank you.
And which kind of brings me to, I noticed something earlier where you were talking about high school and men. And I got to say, I don't think of men being in high school. I think of boys.
Children.
Children. I mean, particularly now. I mean, I think of 30-year-olds as children at this point. But so there were clearly a set of, there were messages that were impacting your sense of relation to the community of the people who are around you. How would you describe how all those messages impacted your sense of self, autonomy,
who
desire?
were you? Like,
Right.
who did you get to be?
Right. And no, it's fascinating, Ken, that you brought some of that up. The fact that I even did, and I skipped over a large part of the story of how we even got there to that divorce part. But yeah, so we did have a few books that were given to us about marriage, and they said things such as a husband's sins are never to be shared outside of the marriage. Okay. So that's horrifying. That is called abuse, friends. But I had never learned about any type of thing other than physical abuse. I did not know any.
So as long as he wasn't hitting you.
Right. So there had been no education on what that could look like. There was a lot of women and men very segregated. So there would be women's Bible studies, and a few of my friends in that space would find out about some of the horrors that were going on in my life. And instead we would just have these prayer intervention things, these deliverances type of things that people would pray over him. And I would just be told that, and I quote, suffering keeps me at the foot of the cross. And so this act of pain, this act of being put through the quote refining fire was making me more godly. And so there were honestly brownie points being given to me, stones being put in my crown of, look at Lauren. I would be told, oh, it's just amazing that you can smile through all of this. There was so much messaging that kept me quiet and meek and silent. And yes, the greatest role that I was to play was to be wife and mother. And we did conceive one child 3 years into our marriage, never conceived more. There wasn't a lot of sexual intimacy going on. But I also think that I am so thankful so thankful now. But I felt like a failure because inside of this world, you are known to be holy and godly with the more children that you have. I had always grown up thinking I would have so many children. So yes, the messaging, who I was my husband's wife. I was, I started a nonprofit at somewhere during all of this after my child had been born. And at one point, my husband in a rage said, that's only because of me. I had no income. I had no life of my own besides this nonprofit organization I had built. But it was very clear that even that was because of. It was dark. It was a dark place. And the most interesting part is that if you had asked me inside of that darkness if I wanted out, I would have told you no until about a year before I left.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's so sobering.
Because you were totally bought in still.
I was so bought in.
So I want to ask you about your deconstruction because it must have been one hell of a ride.
Yeah.
But before that, I actually want to ask, so did you have any pleasure? Like, did you have any connection to personal pleasure while you were still bought in, while you were in that darkness?
So there's always these little moments that I have journaled out over time and that I call the should have known she'd someday be a sexuality educator and relationship coach.
I got that list too.
There are these moments that I'm like, how did she do that? Right? So when we were first married and had never had any form of sexual connection, we had done some heavy makeouts, stuff like that prior to marriage, but truly I had been like a really good one. I wasn't orgasming quickly, shocker, because of all of the things going on. And I was committed to myself that I was going to find this. I was like, no, this is a thing that I should be able to do because, weird other piece of purity culture. You're also told that once you are married, the sex is going to be great. Oh. And so I was determined to have this quote unquote great sex. So I began reading, I began studying, I began really starting to read more erotica. I wouldn't have known to call it that. Go ahead, Ken.
Now I'm curious how they defined great when they told you this, since you didn't know anything at all.
Right.
Or did they even know what great was?
Or did they know? Yeah.
Right.
Pyramid scheme of bad sex.
It was just
so much better than not having sex.
It's going to be really great. Yeah. It was just always told to us that if you wait, it's going to be so wonderful because they'd always say you like get to learn each other's bodies at the same time. You're not bringing any other baggage. This is a la Andrew Tate these days, right? I mean, we are hearing all of these things come around again. I mean,
in a whole
here
new
it is.
Context. We don't need church for it anymore. Let's just take
put it on YouTube.
To YouTube. Yep.
It's just disgusting. So I was told all this stuff. So I coached myself in those times on my own anatomy, how I could find orgasmic experiences within sex. Now, only within procreative sex with my husband. So it is fascinating now knowing the research of how many people with vulvas and vaginas do not orgasm from penetrative intercourse. And yet I was bound and determined because that was the only thing that I thought I could have. Oral sex, yes, was there, but there had been so much shame around the genitals. So that was a very hard curve. The interesting segue of when I found my own body was crying myself to sleep at night about 7 years into our marriage, knowing that I was this close to going and having an affair. Because I was so sexually starved. And so I thought, I know masturbation is wrong. And yet, if I don't do something, I'm going to lose my mind. And so I taught myself how to bring myself to orgasm while silently in bed next to my intoxicated husband. It was very sad. I don't recommend. Don't recommend. But yeah, what a not fun introduction.
Not fun introduction, but I wanted to ask you that because I when I hear you speak now, whether we're talking personally or I'm, observing your teaching, pleasure is at the center of what you do. Like you move through the world, and I see you center pleasure. I see you use pleasure as a barometer of whether things are in the green zone.
Yes.
I see you do this, and I think, is that part of how you deconstructed, or did you get that on the other side? Because I'm imagining deconstruction looked like a million things, but it's not like it looked like, oh, you get to where you are now. How long would you say the deconstruction process lasted? And
So it's just, I'm so glad you asked this question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me this question specifically like this. Pleasure was my way forward. Pleasure was the thing that started my deconstruction. So once I was divorced, I had no money. So I was living in this basement apartment, and it was there in this tiny little basement apartment on the floor that I just began reading anything I could on my own body, because I thought, okay, so I'm not a virgin, so I guess I must be a whore. And is that what I have to look forward to? And something in me was just whispering, no, there's got to be something more. And so I just started to devour books on female sexuality. Like let's start there. I have a vulva. I should know about it. And so from this space, all of a sudden I went, I think I've been lied to.
enter the clitoris.
Like
walks onto the scene.
right? Like you could see a little clitoris. Once the clitoris had arrived and I had been lied to about one thing, it was the moment it all kind of started to crumble, where I went, wait a second, maybe this fear of my sexuality and sensuality was because of some power inside of me. And if there's a power inside of me, what exactly is that? And what exactly might they be hiding? So then I found this book, Mary Magdalene Revealed, which was
Hallelujah.
fantastic, and showed me, I don't know, that they found just as many scrolls of Mary Magdalene's as they did as Peter and Paul, well, all these other people, and yet hers didn't end up in there. Neither did Thomas's. And I went, oh,
The gnosis was hidden.
so that was in, I would say, 2018. And it continued on until like 2020. I mean, it was pretty fast. It was like once the blinders fell off, you can't unknow that they just chose at the Council of Nicaea not to put all of the things they found into the Christian scriptures. You can't unknow how they mistranslated things. You can't unknow anatomy. So you can't. That just kind of began this interesting thing of, if someone's not willing to sit with me in truth and have these conversations, I'm not willing to entertain that conversation anymore. We're not having the same conversation. So it was a long process, but I think the process started in the turmoil of my marriage and was so miserable that life on the other side, it kind of like into,
that makes sense too, because once you, like you said, know the thing that you can't unknow, you are on the path to shifting paradigms.
Yeah.
Like it's happening. You can no longer pretend it is a loss of inness.
Yeah.
And in a good way.
Yes.
It's the loss of innocence that is necessary to become a mature adult.
Yeah.
Because a mature adult who wants to be Christian can practice their Christianity without any of the horror show that you just named.
Yes. Right. And that was the interesting swing.
They need to know
too, is that I also really wanted to get to a place where I wasn't just as angry at the church. I didn't want to become just the other kind. But helpful. It was interesting. Something you said, I thought, I know the last tenet that made this so simple for me was I had done everything the quote unquote right way. Like I hadn't played around, like done some murky version. I had done the true version. And still had not gotten I had still made them all mad. I had still failed. And so it was almost like, okay, well, I did it the perfect way, still failed. So what now?
Yeah. There's a sort of a perverse kind of freedom in that. Oh, well, apparently there was no way to win. So
yeah, and exactly, Ken. Exactly.
I'm hearing you, and the picture that I take out of your story is of of this younger Lauren exploring everything she could within the constraints of the life that she was in, but exploring them. Because the thing is, I put myself into a similar situation. I can imagine just putting my blinders on and not even looking around. But you were like, no, wait, I'm going to find everything I can in here.
Yeah.
And then things started to open up. You get a divorce, and you found yourself in exploring these new ways of thinking outside of this. How did your views on monogamy start to shift?
Well, this was so interesting, right? Because I thought, well, this is like a second adolescence. This is like my chance. And so I should now go have the sex that I've been missing out on.
Yeah, if they're putting you in the whore box,
right?
go
I
have
mean,
some
let
fun.
me impersonate the whore.
Where's my copy of the ethical slut?
Right?
Where
Yeah,
is it?
Where is it? So that was interesting. It was interesting because now I'm finding myself, and again, I know myself so much better at turning 40 this year than I did then, but I am a voracious reader. So I caught myself up real quickly. Now, the people that I was entering the dating game with, they hadn't spent the last decade reading the books that now I've just finished. And so I was going out into this world of, yes, casual dating, casual sex, non-monogamy, just being myself. Probably solo poly would be a great way to put it, right? I didn't have that term then, but that would have been a really good definition for me. I belonged to myself, and then I was inviting others to share in sexual experiences with me. But they hadn't done that work. And so it was just a lot of disappointment. It was a lot of broken hearts. It was a lot of learning through living, and I wouldn't do any of it differently. I am so proud of that era of my life. That was magic. It was magic to have sexual encounters with, it was really good to be like, I'm still standing. Like, I'm fine. Like, I'm really okay. Was that fulfilling? No. Are you a good lover? No. Like, would I do that again? No. But I'm okay. That didn't change my worth. I didn't burst into flames. I didn't, and allowed me to see too that sex is not everything. And I say it all the time now. It's like my clients roll their eyes. I always say sex is not everything. It's just a part of everything. And so it was such a healthy season for me to have the sex and also feel empty. Yeah. To be like,
just going to this other extreme again.
Yes.
Wasn't going to magically be fulfilling.
Nope. That wasn't going to fulfill my deepest attachment desires.
I had the same experience. Really? Like leaving a long-term marriage, I had fallen in love. So I immediately jumped into non-monogamy hardcore with Ken, of course, and another partner. But I was also like, oh, I didn't have my 20s. Let me have them now. Because I got married when I was 20 years old. Yes. So I was like, let me have them now. And yeah, I too. I read everything I could get my hands on, which at the time was not enough. Not enough. Yeah. But I did very quickly realize like, oh, yeah, I can have all the mediocre sex I want. And I can also have all the really awesome sex I want. And it's not going to be clear to me what is happening until I know me. That would it made it very apparent. It took about 18 months of like, oh, it wasn't about either end of that spectrum. It was really about, do I know what I want? Do I know what my body likes? Can I say the words? Can I describe it? And I had known how to do that inside one container.
Yes.
But then when you change containers into this like amorphous, I don't know, I'm making everything up. I can feel into how you would be in this space of like, oh, that didn't fix it either. Did you experience a drop off? Was there any sort of like I'm almost thinking like the intensity of con drop, afterwards, just of like, oh, I thought divorce and just slutting it up would fix it.
Yeah, and I thought there's these key moments. There's moments when I had some hookup with some man, which was utterly unsatisfying. And then we had a date planned for like, I don't know, a couple days later, and he canceled it, like ghosting, canceled it, real mature like. And when I asked him why, he said, well, based on our conversation the other day, I can tell you really just don't care about my work. And at that point, I just giggled because if anyone knows me at all, I love to cheer for other people's dreams. Cheering for people's dreams and their work is like my passion. And I just thought, oh, fool,
You weren't even listening.
You don't even know who I am. And I just thought, oh, like that. It was just so unsatisfying, and I was so unseen.
Mhm.
And there was just this moment where I thought, that's not for me. Right. Which is, yes, that's pleasure, right? That's not
Yeah.
pleasurable
Right.
for me. More casual sex for more people is great. Go
Yeah.
have it, but it didn't fill me up. I want sex where someone's like, oh my God, what a good lover you are. Also, that brain of yours, hot, right?
Right.
Not like, oh, yeah. And then this is who you are, right? This projection of no, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So there were a few key moments, somebody else said, because we were both single, we'd always kind of crushed on each other from way before my marriage. And after we had finally had this sex that was, again, lackluster, that had been building for decades, they said unprompted, also, just so you know, I'll never be enough for you. Like, I will never be the type of man. And like these unprompted things just came out of the blue. And so I think
the universe rose up to meet you.
It was
Yeah.
like, lady, don't
and help you find.
don't spend a lot of time here. And it wasn't nurturing for my soul. And I was also seeking that. But I'm a big journaler. So I would just take to the journal and I would say, what is it that I really want? And it's so interesting because now I do so many of these practices with my clients and I just had no idea that I was formulating what would go on to be my work.
You're making it. You were literally making your work.
Literal,
Yes.
like, okay, so that was great sex. And then there would be equally as sad things where the sex would be amazing, but someone wasn't interested in any type of partnership with me. They were just interested in casual sexual encounters, which also left me in a place of emptiness. And I was like, this is interesting. I'm learning lots of things. So a lot of journaling, a lot of what's the truest want here, right? What's the want below the want? And where is that? Where is that?
I'm imagining that you also had to allow yourself to be in the not knowing for way longer than felt comfortable. Because I found after that period of unsatisfying, largely unsatisfying casual sex, later, it actually was about 5 years later, I learned how to have really satisfying casual sex.
Yes.
But that was like another whole, I wasn't ready yet. And that wasn't about even the people I was partnering with. It was just me. I wasn't ready to be my whole full self in a casual arena yet. And I didn't know. No, and none of the books even that I was reading were telling me like, oh, that may come with time knowing yourself.
Yes.
Like if I could go back and pat the earlier version of me on the head and just give her a big hug, I would say, it's okay that this sucks. And it doesn't even mean, like, I would say the same thing about my own non-monogamy. Like, oh, yeah, it's first iteration.
Yes.
Very questionable. Later iterations, I've loved. Your first iteration of marriage, highly questionable. But you're married again.
Right. Plot twist.
You seem pretty happy about it.
Right? Yes. Thrilled with it. And, out of those silly exercises that I would lead myself through, one of them was this want ad exercise that I came up with of I'm just going to sit here and write want ads like, eligible divorcee in nowhere, Virginia seeks such and such. And I would just have so much fun with it and got playful and ridiculous. And then started to say, okay, so I know the dating pool here in my nowhere, Virginia town. What if when I go on business trips, throw a zip code in an app and go out on some dates? What's the worst thing that could happen? I never have to see this person again. Best thing that happens is I have an interaction that reminds me of this big, bold, beautiful world that we live in and reminds me that there are human beings everywhere and anything is possible. Literally, that's what I thought the best case scenario was, that I would just have an interaction that was like, gave me some oxygen. So yeah, we'll shorten the story, but I did that in San Diego, California. And this man messages me back and he says, Lauren, love, you're in Virginia, state your business. And I said, I'm traveling for work. I like to keep my options open. And we hopped on a phone call and it was if we had known each other forever. And it was weird and vibey and beautiful and funny. And he said, okay, great. Let me pick you up at your hotel. We'll go out. I'll plan the date. And I said, great. See you there. So I get into California. I get to my hotel an hour before our date. I see this petite little man. I am 5'9", almost 5'10". There is this petite little man across the lobby who looks like this man from the picture on the app. And so I text him and say, is that you? It's an hour early, but like, is that you? No text back. I finish checking in. I turn around. There's this man planted 10 feet away. I walk up with my giant orange suitcase in all of my schlepping travel outfit. And I say hi. And as he says hello, my entire body exhales and says, there he is. I kid you not. It was the moment. Everything that people say can happen energetically between human beings happened in that moment. I went to put my hand on my suitcase. His hand was already there. Our hands touched and like electricity went through us. And yeah, literally the rest is history. Moved across the country to be with me. And yeah, now we're
a numinous moment.
It was wild.
Right? But being open to that required so much personal work.
Untold amounts of work. And work on his too.
Yeah. This is not one-sided.
No, after our incredible date in San Diego, we had some days after my trip to spend together at my work event to spend together as well, wherein I learned he had just finished Ethical Slut. He had been doing work and had really deconstructed. He doesn't come from religion at all, but is in a male body and had come from the world in which women do this, men do this. And he had really worked to not, he was like, no, he had cheated in past relationships and was like, something is wrong with how things work. And I can never do that again. I can never just do the way that culture says.
So he was finding his way out too.
Yeah. And I was like,
that's a good place to meet.
That's a really good place to meet.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful spot that we could stop at, but do we have time for a last question?
Ask the one last question because I think it's a great question, and then we'll tell everybody how to find Lauren because they're going to want to find her.
Okay, so from your perspective as a sex educator now, what would you say to somebody just beginning to question their upbringing around purity and sexuality and relationship norms?
I'd invite them to do a little exercise, and it goes like this. Think of yourself at the following ages, 7, 14, and 21. Think of who you are, where you are in the world, who's influencing you. Are you in Sunday school? Do you have a bevy of friends? Just put yourself in your body at those ages and then answer these questions for each of those ages. I'll get a journal page out. Sex is fill in the blank. My body belongs to fill in the blank. A man's role is, a woman's role is, pleasure is, marriage is, relationships are. Do that for ages 7, 14, and 21. And then really start to look at if any of those still affect you today. If any of those you actually don't really believe anymore. Or, fun extra question, do you even align with the people who first taught you those things? And how would you like to inform your own choices going forwards? What would you like those fill in the blanks to say and to be? And start your own work. There's so much juicy stuff out there to read and to learn. And by allowing ourselves to be enlightened in so many ways, we can start to see that possibly there are other ways to exist. But yeah, just do a quick little inventory of the things you've believed in the past and do a little check-in with yourself. Do you still align with those things or the people who taught you those things?
I really love that. I really, really do. Because when Ken and I grew up, so intermingled in the same neighborhood, same background. And it was both of us had a moment realizing, oh, we don't align with the
Right.
people who
Yeah.
taught us about
Those
relationships.
things.
It's such a great
Oh,
question.
we
I
don't
like-
even need to know exactly where we want to go.
Yep.
It's
Right.
enough to start with,
That.
wait, okay, then I guess I better figure out what I do believe in. I guess I better, like, just knowing that, I found it very empowering. So I love this exercise.
Yeah, I love that exercise particularly because I thought, yeah, I don't align with these people, but I guess it doesn't matter. It does matter.
It does.
And if the idea that it matters and that I can then use that to go forward is amazing.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. And then we can also notate that we no longer believe a lot of the things that we used to believe at 7 and 14 and 21. So
Right.
joke's on us.
Not even
Then we
supposed
can
to.
go, oh, wait a second. I've changed a lot of other beliefs that I have that weren't sexual or relational.
Yeah.
It's just that our sexual and relational selves were formed, right? Not as much in the light as so many other things. We grew up in people and culture and norms. That's all out here in the open. But so many of those practices were not polite
Yeah.
to talk about that.
You were
And
just
so I
supposed to know.
Yes, I think it is so awesome to go, I don't believe what other things that I used to believe at 7, but I'm still holding on to that one. Why? I just think we can be such amazing teachers to ourselves, and it can start there. Yeah, we don't have to.
I love it.
What a
I
great
love it.
answer. Thank you.
Lauren, tell everyone how they should follow you, find you. How can they engage with you further?
Go to sexedforyou.com/connect. I just made a little URL. Do that, and I just put all the good stuff there. There are ways to find me and request a free consult with me. There is the partnership podcast that I have with my sweet partner now. There are millions of ways to connect with me, but it's all at sexedforyou.com/connect.
Yay. And we will make sure that that link is in the show notes. And we'll also throw in Lauren's outstanding social media links as well, because Lauren is on all of
I
the
do
all
like the
things.
socials.
You do it very, very well. And you have been just really, you've been hitting the sweet spot for me. So I thank you for digging in, doing your work. I know when we met, you were still in early stages of this journey. And it is such a joy to see how you have blossomed and grown. I'm so, so proud of you and so excited that we get to share this conversation here in this way. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
Lauren.
much.
There's no one right way to design your relationship. And lots of people, actually about 25%, according to a recent national survey, are interested in some type of open relationship. But how do you know if you are ready to open up happily? Not everyone is, and that's no problem. I've got a 60-second quiz that will give you the answer. And even better, you'll walk away with your next step, whether you're good to go or not so much when it comes to opening up. And this is no BuzzFeed nonsense. I personally designed this quiz from my years of academic research. Go to joliequiz.com. That's JOLIQUIZ.com and find out if you're ready to open up happily and what to do if you are